Right, welcome back to another episode, Testing the Tips. This one is from Danny Maud. He has a live lesson, which I suggest you go and watch now, because the results he achieves within that lesson from the drills you're about to see in today's video are incredible. A lady goes in there with a swing, struggling a little bit, and all of a sudden she's hitting draws and all kinds of with every club. And I think it's a fairly straightforward and effective, but a very effective lesson and drill. So start off, and we haven't got anyone for that live lesson. I will be that guinea pig for today. Start off was the ball position, and that was already sort of causing the lady to have an issue. She set up for a shot shape. So at address, she was already getting herself into position, which was going to cause her problems. We won't talk about the problem, but we'll talk about the fix. We've done this again before in a Danny Maud video. Often a lot of the information that Danny gives is repeated, and it's important that we sort of get that drill into our head. He talks about having the ball in a good position and making sure that we get ourselves in a good setup position, square to target. And the simple way of doing that is this: either position a club in the middle of your chest, just let it hang free, and when you address the ball, that is pretty much ball in center of our stance. Dead easy, I know, but it's important that we do this. We don't want the ball too far forward, we don't want the ball too far back, we don't want the legs open to target. All those kind of things are eradicated by simply putting that club in the center of your chest, drop it down, address the ball. Alternative to that, and the lady suggested she preferred, especially for being out on the golf course, was to hold the club out in front of her, center of chest again, and then just arch the back, bend the knees a little bit, and you're in a very good start-off position to at least give you a chance of starting the ball correctly, as opposed to, like I've just said, many other errors before we've even worried about what the club head starts to do. That's the first part. Second part is understanding that we are effectively trying to hit the ball with some sort of shape, if you like, not hitting the ball necessarily straight. Now that may sound a little bit odd, and I know it does to me, because effectively, you know, that's what I'm ultimately looking to do. The shots you'll see me hit now are looking to do something a little bit different than I would normally in terms of how I'm controlling the club face through impact. And as you can see, and if you watch the channel a lot, you'll see that I'm starting to hit a lovely draw shape as opposed to my more regular cut. So how do we achieve that, and what was the problem, and why is the kind of what's going on in our headspace the real issue? First of all, 3 lines towards target, and one being the target line, so where we're aiming towards, the other being right of target, which is the sort of where our club path will follow, the line it will follow. And we've got to do something a little bit different to make sure the ball isn't going out on that line to the right of target. We're also going to make sure we're not pulling it to the left. And all Danny focuses on is just a little bit of club head control through impact. So you got the lady just looking to feel like that the club face is just closing a little bit through that impact position. So we're going to swing out what effectively feels like right of target. And as we're swinging through, we're just going to feel like through impact, we're just closing the club face a tad. Now, it takes a little bit of tweaking, I would suggest, but if I can do that, so I'm up, and then I feel like I'm going that way. I don't feel like I went enough out that way, and I think this will be, yes, slightly left of target, but you can see the shot shape is very much a kind of right to left. I'm going to try that one more time, because what I'm going to do is try and extend down that line that is right of target. Just roll the wrist just a tad, and you'll see the kind of impact it has. So I'm in a pretty good, decent start position, but we're going to go down the right and then roll the wrists. That started center, and it's just coming back a tad. You can see the curvature on the shadow, and we're starting to achieve that little bit of right to left ball flight. And I've got to say that for me, again, reporting back on how I sort of assess these drills, it'd be something you'd have to sort of get used to in that control element. There's a danger, obviously, if you overdo that movement, then you're going to start seeing a hook develop into your shot shape, which is dangerous. But for me, who maybe 5 years ago relied on a draw shape as being what I hit, and then moved to a fade because I was overdoing it, if you like, I always tended to maybe hook a few, which were quite dangerous. Then understanding this element of the sort of where the club path will take, and very much right of target, and then controlling the club face is something that is a huge help for me. So understanding that element is significant, and understanding the control element of the club face is also hugely important. So whatever you take from this drill, I think if you go down the driving range and give this one a bit of a whirl, you'll certainly start to understand what you're doing in terms of controlling that club face and what kind of impact it has on your shot shape. So hugely successful with the iron, and that ability to understand the controlling of the head, like I said, really important. But this live lesson on Danny's channel progresses, and it progresses into the longer end of the bag and ultimately ends up at driver. Now the question is, can we keep that same club head control and effectively hit a draw shape, a controlled draw shape that is, with driver? And don't go anywhere, because for me there's a kind of big reveal and a real sort of honest assessment of this drill, and honest assessment of YouTube tips in general, where you have to be very careful. So the first thing Danny looks at is trying to create this kind of draw shape by first of all moving the club head backwards. Again, a drill I've seen before. So effectively what we're doing is we're moving our low point to 6 inches behind the ball. That should in effect start to see the club head already closing on its natural swing path. So we're creating that kind of closed face through impact. What we're doing as well is we're staying sort of behind the ball, we're not swaying, and we're going to move around our swing arc, naturally that is. So rather than address the ball as we would do, inside front heel, club head behind the ball, all the same things apply in terms of standard setup, except we're going to drop the club head 6 inches behind the ball. We're then going to just adopt that same situation as what we did and just feel like we're just aiming. First of all, we've got our target line, which we visualize. We've got our club path, which will be out to the right, but then slowly starting to roll those wrists. And it should look something like this. That is a left and a left hook. Now what you're going to see now is a number of shots with me trying to apply this lesson that worked hugely successfully for the lady, fail miserably for me. And that is the reality of what a lesson can do and interpretations of lessons. So what I don't want to do is constantly pop up with lessons on testing the tips, which I sort of suggest are magic wands, because they're not. Ultimately what I found was it was hugely successful with the iron in hand. The minute I moved into driver, it was the whole reason as to why I try and personally hit a fade and not a draw with driver, because most of the time I struggled to control that club face and the results were anything but what they should be. Now there are obviously bits that I'm doing wrong. If Danny was in the room now, he'd suggest my interpretation was wrong, and there's different parts to the swing that are also contributing to my poor results. But the reality is that's not how YouTube tips actually work. We watch them, we go to the driving range, and we try and implement what we think and what we have seen in the video. And that's what you've always got to be mindful and wary of. So you're never going to come on this channel and see me talk about a tip that has been fantastic and changed things significantly unless it actually has. And in this case, I think understanding the control of the club face is hugely important. I can control it in terms of the iron, and don't forget that'll be again what we've talked about lots of times before, that shorter shaft, being able to control the club face, as opposed to when we start to look at driver, my inability to be able to control that kind of roll in the wrist is quite dangerous. So be very careful with this tip and with all that you see on any channel. But what I would suggest is what can do no harm is going to the driving range, trying to understand how you are controlling that club face and seeing what impact it is having on your shot shape, and then you can start to register what the problem is and hopefully find some results. Right, as ever, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that one. Hope you appreciate the honesty. Thanks as ever for watching, and I'll see you all next Friday.